I started working with silicone, I think it was year 2 in art school, and I sort of really got hooked by not using it as a mould but using it to take the shape of things, like pouring it over a salt and pepper shaker to make something that looked kind of like a rocket, pouring it inside funnels, making wobbly things. And I think it was the wobbliness and sort of the inherent sexual connotations that come with wobbliness got me going. And its ability to move and communicate. It was so much easier to do that with a wobbly, silly thing than something kind of serious and hard and cold like silver. So the paddle pendant that's in Wonderuma was actually a byproduct of something else I was doing, and so this process was kind of by accident. It was basically a project I was doing with Lisa Walker in the Handshake Project, and we were doing this little experiment where she sent me something and I'd do something to it and send it back, and we went back and forth about 5 times. But when it first came to me, it was just a piece of plastic, like off a lunchbox or something. It was just a sort of bowl thing, and so my first instinct was to drill holes in it, and the second idea was to layer up silicone inside it. So I decided to combine the two and drill holes in it and then drip silicone through it. So I figured out a contraption to hold the thing together and started dripping it through, and then I got this awesome puddle underneath. I was like, oh yay, just the greatest kind of accidents bring about the best work sometimes. The snow brooch came about, I went to Munich in 2013 for the Handshake show, and when I arrived there was snow all over the ground, and coming from New Zealand I haven't spent that much time with snow. As it got warmer and started melting and everyone else started arriving, then by the time the Schmuck week was on, there was no snow on the ground, just these piles of really dirty snow that had been sort of shoveled off the path, and they were just getting smaller and smaller as the days went by. And it was about then that I had the idea of making a snow brooch, making a snowball, wearing it for a while. But devastatingly, there was no snow left. So on the last day, actually, me and Fran and Renee went to Nuremberg, and on the train as we were going further north, the snow started falling and there was more and more snow, and I started getting really, really excited because I could make this brooch, and of course no one would see it, so I wanted to video it. I could video it on my iPod. So as we were walking through the town, I was scouting out the perfect kind of spot to do the video and make the snow brooch. Finally found it on this bridge, and just sort of did it in one take. My iPod was about out of batteries, and so I only just got it, and Renee just sort of stopped recording right after I'd put it on, and it had fallen off, and it was just perfect timing. It's just, I think it's probably the best brooch I've ever made. It was just so good that I've got it on tape. The sushi brooch was quite funny, actually. I went with a few friends from work op shopping in South Auckland, and we'd been to, I think, 3 or 4 op shops, and I hadn't bought anything, and everyone else had bought like some clothes and some things and whatever, and I just hadn't found anything exciting. And then we're at the checkout. I was just waiting for my friends to go through, and I saw this packet of fake sushi just sitting there by the counter, and I was like, whoa. I had to look around. It had a $2 sticker on it, and it had a little sticker on the side saying "From Janet's Gift Shop in Samoa," and it sort of started me wondering, and when you see an object like that, well, when I see an object like that, I immediately pick it up and sort of, think about its wearability. And I just thought it was an instant brooch, really. So I took it back to work and stuck on a pin and called it a brooch. That's kind of what the thing that I really love about jewellery and using found objects and special things like the found box of sushi and this thing. Every now and then you find an object that's so special that just has to be worn, and it's those things that really, really engage people and get people talking, and it just grabs their interest. I think, like, what is that? Like sometimes I wear a tube of Yoo-Hoo glue, and so many people come up to me and say, "Excuse me, did you know you've got some glue in your shirt?" Like, yeah. That whole thing of catching someone's eye by what you're wearing and initiating a conversation, really, because the thing about everyone's got their own sort of shyness about talking to a new bunch of people, but if you see someone that's wearing something awesome, you can just go up and go, "Wow, what's that?" And that's an instant conversation starter. So for a while I was making these things just so that they could be conversation starters for people who owned them, and that was my kind of context anyway, to use as a marker of otherness, or that you're not normal like everyone else. You might be someone who's interesting to talk to, kind of thing, and breaking down those social barriers between strangers. So that was kind of my starting point, and it still drips through the whole look at me kind of thing with these things, because it's they are very bright and colourful,